I am Michael Taylor, Program Coordinator at Michigan Collaborative to End Mass Incarceration, and welcome to another MI-CEMI Communications Roundtable. Today's conversation is on documentary storytelling, using film to advance advocacy and narrative change. This convening will explore the role of documentary storytelling in advocacy, narrative change, public education, and system transformation. Through an interactive conversation, uh, we will connect documentary projects. Attendees will gain insight into the creative process, challenges, ethical considerations, investment, and impact of advocacy-centered storytelling. Next slide, Chuck. Again, we have two speakers today. One is in the building. One I expect to show up anytime now. So just bear with us. Just bear with us. But like I said, we have an OG in the game, Dr. Yusuf Bunchy Shakur. He will be discussing his Road to Redemption documentary, as well as executive director of the Delta Project, Cole Williams. He will be discussing the documentary that he's recently completed as well. Next slide, please. So I think you guys are used to MI-CEMI communications tables, but I wanted to just give you a little overview of our welcome. So, of course, there's opening remarks, what I'm doing now. Make sure you guys are doing your intros in the chat. We will ground on the purpose of the communications table. We will briefly revisit some shared community agreements and community norms. Like I said, I know you guys have been to enough of these, so we won't stay on them too long because I want to get into our panel discussion with our speakers. Dr. Yusuf Bunchy Shakur, who is the Executive Director at Michigan Roundtable for Just Communities, as well as Cole Williams, Executive Director and co-founder of the Delta Project. I will give us some time for some audience Q&A and discussion, followed by some announcements, upcoming events, and we will be able to close out, and we'll give a little bit of information on the next meeting that we had, Chuck alluded to earlier. Next slide, please, Chuck. Why we are all here. MI-CEMI's mission is to improve connection and coordination among people and organizations working to end mass incarceration so we can accomplish more together than any of us can on our own. Communications Table's mission is to provide training, resources, peer support, and coordination among people who are doing communications work on criminal legal issues to strengthen and amplify narrative change efforts. And this session's goal, by the time we're done here, we would like to have learned how documentary storytelling can amplify lived experience, shift public narratives, and serve as a tool for advancing justice and ending mass incarceration. Next slide, please, Chuck. And the community agreements. So I cut a few of them off because I didn't think that we needed a whole bunch of community agreements, especially for the way that this conversation is going to go. But I did add a couple, leave a couple, and that is move up, move back. Basically meaning like move around, don't stay in your position in as far as like what you're used to. If you're a laid back person, challenge yourself to step up. If you are a more outward person, challenge yourself to let others speak up. Respect the mic, one speaker at a time. Stay on mute if you are not speaking. That is imperative because of the way that this conversation is going to go. We don't want to confuse people. And this is a recording that will be put up on the MI-CEMI paid YouTube channel. So we want to have it as clear as we can. And lastly, take care of yourself. Although we enjoy seeing your faces on the camera because it is kind of tough to talk to nothing but names on screen, we appreciate you needing to take care of yourself. And if you need to step off camera for any reason or just be off camera during the meeting, feel free. There's no pressure. That's it. Next slide, please. So without further ado, I want to give a thorough introduction to our first speaker, and that is Dr. Yusuf Shakur. He is the Executive Director of Michigan Roundtable for Just Communities, but here is a little of his bio. Dr. Shakur is a Detroit-born scholar, author, filmmaker, organizer, and Executive Director of Michigan Roundtable for Just Communities, where he became the first Black and formerly incarcerated leader in the organization's 85-year history. Rooted in the enduring legacy of his mama, Ava Jo, and shaped by the political consciousness of his father, Dr. Shakur's work bridges scholarship, storytelling, grassroots organizing, policy advocacy, and community transformation. I appreciate you, Dr. Shakur, for being here today. And everybody, welcome Dr.
Yeah,
Shakur.
yeah. I appreciate you guys for putting this on, man, and for having me.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Yes, sir. So before we even get into the topic of the day, although I did a quick bio on you, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of talk about yourself and the work that you've done on your documentary. Like, I guess tell us a little bit about the background of the documentary before I ask any questions.
that's a great question. The only thing that's missing that you identify in my bio is like, coming home from prison. I did what very few of us, or what to statistically say those who've been to prison can't do, which is go back to the particular communities that we was criminalized in, because of the dynamics there are just so overwhelming, where we end up falling back prey or victim to the circumstances. And been very fortunate where neither of those have happened. So for 25 years, organized on the block I grew up on. I started with like a community bookstore, urban network, that transitioned to the Mama Cool Community House, do annual backpack event, and all these things have that comes out of my lived experience, which helped also shape the documentary, the narrative, the story. I think a lot of times we there's a story, but then also where is the substance in the story? So for me, I'm more than a story. The substance of the work that I do. So it doesn't matter if you know my name. What matters is that you know the work that I do, and knowing the work that I do is the impact that we're trying to have.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate that. And as I said, we have two speakers here today. And I told y'all he was going to show up right on time. So as soon as I introed Yusuf and asked the brother to just tell a little bit about himself, of course, the brother Cole pops right up in my cache. So give me a second, brother, because I want to introduce you properly. First and foremost, I appreciate you showing up. This is Cole Williams, Executive Director and co-founder of the Delta Project. Cole Williams is a motivational speaker, fatherhood consultant, facilitator, and the founder of Cole Speaks. His background includes the creation and leadership of programs that work to empower and restore relationships between boys and men of color. Most importantly, Cole is a father to 7 sons. I appreciate you, Cole, and before I get into the topic, I want to give you the opportunity, the same as I gave Yusuf, to just kind of talk a little bit about yourself and the work that you've done up to this point, and as far as the story.
Yeah, sure. So thank you for having me in this space, and I am honored to be in the room with Yusuf. I've had an opportunity to follow this brother along his journey, and we share in the beard game. His goals are massive, so I'm just honored to be in this space, and I'm actually really excited to see the community in this room with us this afternoon. But yeah, my name is Cole Williams, and you know what I would say to this is that probably the best title that well, not be, the best title that I own and have is just being a father, and so I'll just lead into that. And my work, as I've shared in many spaces, my work actually started with one of my sons who found himself. We found ourselves as a family battling the intersection of community mental health, the educational system, um, DHS, child welfare system, and ultimately the juvenile justice system. By way, unfortunately, me making a phone call out of concern of my safety and the safety of my family. And so, what I often tell people is that I wish I would have had a psychiatric team that I could have called instead of calling 911. But unfortunately, I only had 911 as a reference or a point of support. And that when they arrested my son, our lives totally took a change. And so for me, it's really my life's work has really been about a calling that I had on December 30th, 1994. Is when my son was born. He was born 7 pounds, 3 ounces, 21 inches long, at 9:55 in the morning on a Wednesday. And I think the first time that a doctor had ever identified me, because when you think about, I was 16 at the time when I became a father, and I struggled with identity, and a doctor was like, "Hey, Dad, would you like to cut the umbilical cord?" And I think that was the first time I heard I had been called something that was positive. And although I didn't grow up seeing a father in my home or in my neighborhood or in my friends' homes, what I did do is saw tons of fathers on television. And it was those narratives that I saw with Heathcliff Huxtable. It was with James Evans. It was with Michael Landon from Little House on the Prairie. It was with those fathers that entered into my home that I had a sense of like, oh, this is what fatherhood could look like. And so when the doctor identified me as a father at 16, my reference points were media and the experiences that I had in that space. And so I think fast forward looking at that is what really has led me into the work that I now do and the power of media and its gift and curse when it comes to storytelling. And so I'd say that's really been the work. And by way my son going into the juvenile justice system led to me being very curious and asking tons of questions. And before you know it, now I'm working in the detention facility. Now I'm working with parents. Now I'm challenging systems to really figure out better approaches to support and engage families. And I'm also still fathering a son who's in the criminal justice system as a 28-year-old who's in prison right now. So that's been my path into this work. Lived experience, of course, as a parent, and the need to make things that are not visible visible.
I say, I say. Okay, so that was the groundwork of making sure y'all understand the value of having these two men here. Just on a personal note, man, the both of these brothers have been from afar, like uh, coaches to me or like mentors to me. I've been paying attention to the both of you. Um, Yusuf, you know, I try to tell you as many times I can. I try to give you your flowers, big bro. I've been watching you as well. And Cole, brother, fatherhood is that heavy in my mind as well. So I appreciate you being an example for fathers who didn't have fathers. That being said, I want to get into the reason and the meat of why you guys chose your story. So this conversation, I'm not going to break it up. I want to have a kind of a conversation between the three of us. So I'll be asking you, you know, back and forth questions. Um, Dr. Yusuf, I think the first question I'm going to address to you, and then I'll bring it to you, Cole. What inspired the documentary? You started off talking about your story and how your story is more than just your personal life. But like, what really made you decide to do a documentary versus, I don't know, writing a book or a podcast or any other means of telling the story?
So actually, I started off with the book and wrote my first book, The Wonders of My Soul, in like 2008. And then a few years later, wrote my second book, My Soul Looks Back. And, at that time, I think, books are still relevant, but, the world has changed dramatically. I mean, especially post COVID, content, everybody's hungry for content, visual. Uh, but, when you read a good book, you have all these type of images that just going through your mind, and that you're like people are like, man, I know Zone 8. Ain't never been in Zone 8. They've been they all the way in Germany, but they feel it. So all those things just living. That's the next step. And then, I mean, every tool now is that we have to be able to use, from literature, from audio, from visual, to have the type of impact. And I think if we're not growing with what's in front of us, then we're doing a disservice to those who are hungry for what we have to offer, but also denying our own ability to feed ourselves, to grow and challenge ourselves, to communicate what we have to the audience of people that we want to have an impact with.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Similarly, Cole, but before you answer the question, I know Yusuf's documentary. I've been living with Yusuf's documentary for a few years. Road to Redemption has been being shown for a little while, and I've gotten acclimated to it. Yours, I'm not familiar with. Neither is our audience. So, can you tell us like the title and the premise of it, and then answer the question as to like what inspired you to do it?
Okay. Yeah. So the title of the documentary is called The Fatherhood Project. And I would say the purpose of the film was really to bring what I have seen over a decade of working with young people, adolescent males involved in our juvenile justice system, is a lack of seeing them with a level of humanity that is connected to fatherhood. And so this documentary is really focused in on 8 young fathers who have been navigating the juvenile justice system, or a system, over a period of time. And so we followed them for 2 years, capturing their journeys. But what we did do for this documentary, what I think sets it, makes it a little bit different, is that we didn't come in as people that gather information and then tell the story. We gave the young people, these young fathers, the tools, and then they told us the story. And so I think that was really the idea behind this. And it really is from being in a position where I'm interacting with young men who are in our either in a residential treatment program across the state of Michigan, or in a juvenile detention facility where no one is asking them if they're a father. So when they enter into one of those systems, child welfare system, community mental health, nothing in the paperwork says or asks, "Are you a dad?" And so I started asking that question in my classroom. And that is really where I started finding young fathers, because no one had asked them the question. And so this film is really about asking that question and then humanizing the connection that young fathers have with their children, and shifting the narratives around the biases that are connected to young males who happen to be a father at the age of 14.
So stay unmuted, Cole, because I actually want to follow that up with the question of why now? Why was that story important now versus, I don't know, 10 years ago?
Uh, I I think the story has always been a now story. I just think that you don't, when typically you see an adolescent boy, you don't see him first as a father. You see him as all of the things that we might label him as. But one of the things you typically don't first identify him as a father. And what I noted in my own lived experience is that I was 16 and I had found myself with a son that was given to me through the child welfare system, through foster care. And then that landed me into receiving food stamps and benefits from the state. And then that led me to receiving WIC. And then it led me to child support, by applying for it so that I can get assistance from the mother of my child. And now I'm just thrust into these systems that I really don't understand. And I'm a 16-year-old boy trying to also find my identity. And so that happened in the 90s for me. And fast forward, I'm sitting in a room with young people who are struggling with identity, struggling to find a place to belong. And now they're saying, "Hey, Cole, I'm a dad." And I haven't seen my son or my daughter. And when I do see them, it's when I appear in court, when I turn around and look at them. Hopefully, the mother of my child and my children are sitting in the courtroom. And so I was finding fathers being parents without any connection with that. And so it is a now thing. It's recognizing the humanity of boys, particularly Black boys and brown boys. It's recognizing that they are lovable, they are to be loved, and they are loved, and they have love to give. And for me, this film doesn't just talk about the juvenile justice system; it's a whisper. But what you do see is the relationship between this young father and his children. So for me, it's attachment, it's love, it's nurturing, and it's shifting these ideologies that boys just are to be just boys without a level of humanity connected to who they are and the essence of them. So it's always been a now. I think, you know, I just had the opportunity to be able to see it, and be unwilling to accept the word no about what I'm seeing, and challenging systems, and taking the tools that the systems have created and giving it to the young people so that they can tell their own stories.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Dr. Yusuf, I have a similar question for you, but I need to ground it a little bit because Road to Redemption is not a new documentary. It's been a couple years. Uh, when exactly did it first launch, and then why did it matter? Like, why does it matter now? Because I feel like it's as relevant right now, today, as it was when it came out before I even knew of it. So,
Great question. Actually, my film came out 10 years ago. So at that time, it was called Detroit Native Son. And my goal was to go through the film festival route. And I was so eager, like I just put it out there, was hosting events. And if anybody's familiar or unfamiliar with the film festival, that they have a real rigid format. So, which is if you do public viewings, certain film festivals automatically disqualifies you. And so I thought my film was worthy of film festivals, and I'm glad I did. So we modified it and changed the name from Detroit Native Son to Redemption Road. Um, and it kind of like a book, right? You go through, you have your first edition, your second edition. So we'll call this Redemption Road is like the third edition. And
Okay.
and then also, you don't have big budgets, but because you don't have a big budget doesn't mean that you can't put out quality stuff. And putting out quality stuff meaning like you got to find people who believe in your project, and that's where like continuing to uncover that folks who believe in it, who have the skill set to bring like the story is what the story is. It's going to capture you, but who can help bring that story to life? And so, for the last year and a half, Redemption Road has been all over the country, even outside the country. It has received over 20 awards in the film festival. So it's very gratifying. From LA to Vegas to New York, like, and what I've learned, the common theme is like the hunger for what's being discussed, but also the opportunity to how we can change the things that are being discussed. And the film has been that tool to be able to help reconstruct within our communities, but more importantly, rebuild the human beings in our community.
Yeah, for sure. I agree 100% as far as the redemption role being a conversation piece for other things. I've actually even been on a panel that discussed some of the root causes of what led to your story and redemption role. But that kind of leads me into the next question, thought that I have for you. Um, Especially, well, no, I won't even say that because both have their level of trauma. So I'll start with you, Dr. Yusuf, and that is, what were some of the challenges, the emotional challenges of revisiting your trauma and developing your documentary?
That's a great question. I think I would for this answer, the book, writing a book really took me there more so than the film. The
Mm,
film, because we didn't go inside and totally do it like a remake, um, and I was going through a shift in myself. Like I think transformation is a continued thing, and so there's some things I was already in place, like in the breakthrough, particular understanding like the patriarchalness of the society we live in and how we devalue women on the nature of being women, so to speak, right? But also you want to be truthful. So being realizing the how like my mother could be portrayed through the narrative as the villain. The one was there, she loved me hard. She whipping my ass, like she doing all the things to make sure I don't end up in prison like my dad. But then in the story, you pretty much hear like my dad, he saves me. I meet him in prison, and that's not the story, but how our minds function. That's how you can take it, right? And just like really wrestling through those things, and it doesn't come off that way, but it can. And so verbalizing that post the film, making sure when I talk about that, and I think for most of us, in particular Black men, unfortunately, are raised by our mothers, right? And so, how do we not erase them in recognizing our fatherhood, our manhood? I think they're a staple to our manhood because again, none of them acts to raise us by themselves, but they chose to meet the demand the best that they could, and so finding the balance between honoring my mother and my father, which is my mother's my hero, my father's my mentor. I can't be here without neither one of them. And they both play instrumental roles at different parts of my life.
man, good stuff. Good stuff. Cole, were there also emotional challenges for you as far as stepping into this storytelling?
Um, Yeah, I would say in my mind that comes to mind is vicarious trauma.
Mm,
Um, Often hearing the stories of young fathers and a shared theme that arose from interviewing them or listening to them or walking alongside them during the spaces that they cultivated for us to enter was just hearing that I grew up without my dad. And I grew up without my dad, or I grew up without my dad, or I grew up without my dad. And so I think the constant echo of just that in itself and the need to make sure that a child has a different experience than the experience one one has experienced, I think takes a toll over time when you start to see, oh man, there's such a value and a true need for children to have access to their fathers. There is one scene in the documentary that I think I cry. We've shared the film 3 times thus far. We just finished it. Our premiere was a couple of weeks ago. And the first time I fully cried through it is the echo of one of the children in the film saying, "Daddy, catch me, Daddy, catch me." And I think I keep asking myself, why does this scene cause me to cry the way that I do? And I think there are so many children across the country who want their daddies to catch them, to chase after them, and I think the little boy that I still carry around with me, still in some regards want my father to catch me, or to chase me, or to find me if we're playing hide and seek. And I think those things show up in this film for me, that I'm still wrestling with. Although, at 29 or 30, I found my father and he was at the premiere. But
mm,
the need to still have your parent, as father or mother, anyone that is absent from your journey, to have them catch you, to have them be present in your childhood is so important. So I would say vicarious trauma kind of surfaced for me. And then yeah, so that's kind of been some of the things that I keep circling back to. That I'm like, oh, I thought I healed that, and I was like, oh, healing doesn't happen just by
it,
having a moment. It shows up all the time.
it keeps going.
Yeah, yeah,
Healing is continuous.
yeah.
That said, though, Cole, you work with specifically young men in your storytelling. Uh, can you talk about some of the like ethical considerations that you had to take when dealing with those young men and telling their stories and the children of those young men?
Yeah, from the who would help me produce it. Just recognizing who did I think I could bring on the team, who I wouldn't have to say things like, okay, that's not culturally relevant. No, you cannot do that when you are editing this film. I need you to have a cultural lens that if I'm not in the room to tell you, I need you to be able to speak to that or feel it. And so, bringing on Aves Films, who helped me produce this and edit it, they were really instrumental because this was Black and Brown Latino X community who who helped see things in a way that I didn't have to always have to speak to, and I think that's really important in some of this work. I would say too, constantly reassuring these young fathers that they're okay, that their stories matter. That kept showing up in this work. Um, where we shot most of the scenes was at locations that were uh childhood memories for many of these young dads. And we didn't just shoot here in Grand Rapids. We also went over into Benton Harbor, which just happened to be my hometown. And so we had an opportunity to follow a young father in that space as well. So I would say just the environment was something that I had to take into account. I was very, very particular about not creating a documentary that showed the system itself. I didn't want to show another film that had the prison or the juvenile justice system baked into it, where you saw a father and his child disconnected by the physical system itself. But the idea of shifting that to nature and connection was the key to the work. So I'm like, nope, I don't want to see that. I'll talk about it as the narrator, but you don't have to see it because we have enough images that tell us that story. And so just being conscious of that was really important. And making sure that the children's voices were included. Like I wanted mics on the children. I wanted you to hear them. Because I think we often talk about fathers and we talk about parents and systems, but you often don't hear the voices of children and just their natural voices. You know, I'm not sitting and interviewing them. They're interacting with their fathers and you're hearing the sounds of their voices. And I think for me, that just I wanted to humanize the connection that a father has with his children, but I also wanted you to not just hear the father, but I wanted you to hear their voices. And so those were those ethical pieces that I was constantly wrestling with. And being a person that's never written a film, or this is not even a playground I play in. Um, so I was asking myself, who the hell do you think you are to be able to do a documentary? You know, why do you think you can do that? And so those are some of those other things that kept popping up in my head around, do I have the rights to tell these stories? And so those are some of those things that I was wrestling with as I was moving through this for the last 2 years.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for that. Yusuf, you have any thoughts when it comes to ethical considerations?
That's a great question. Actually makes me at the time doing the film, I wasn't working on my PhD, and so when you're working on that level of scholarship, you have that comes up. Particularly if you're interviewing people, so I forget the technical terminology. Like you have to get approved because of you want to be considerate, and it just is necessary. I think overall, there's an unwritten ethical thing that goes within this work, or it should, and I was governed by that, where not into the business of sensationalizing, not in the business of just having us look a certain type of way. Uh, like there's a road that I'm trying to travel, and the people who I'm inviting to be on this road is have to operate a certain type of way, and that's the standard. Like you don't and meeting that standard is to help the next person. And so from that, because it's already, as Cole mentioned, there's already some unwritten things. There's some already things in our head. Like so, the film and what we're trying to do is take us away from that. It could be connected in some way, but you don't have to. You don't have to dodge in that. Like it's enough of that already. How can we create a new standard? And that was the ethical thing, and that starts with like to Cole's point, people, and some people are not bad what they do. They're just how they've been conditioned. So here's the opportunity to recondition someone. Oh, I didn't know you, or I didn't expect you to think like that. That's okay, but now you know, and hopefully that impacts them in their next project where they can be an influence on someone else on how to do a project versus just coming in doing some very stereotypical type stuff.
Man, yes, sir. I actually have a follow-up question to that because I do podcasting and I'm interested in capturing the stories of formerly incarcerated, currently incarcerated, system impacted. And I know in retracing my story, I initially thought it was personal, but once I got into prison with so many other black and brown men that came from similar circumstances and their stories sounded like mine, I became interested in like capturing my story in a way that also highlighted the greater story. Um, this question is kind of to both of y'all, so I don't necessarily want to direct it, but like, how do you balance the advocacy, like giving the advocacy side as well as the storytelling side? And either one of y'all.
I'll go first. I think for me, advocacy is in everything that we do,
Hmm.
and you don't have to consider yourself an advocate per se. And I think this is where people get confused and lost. Like now I need to change up. I think again, communication is a form of advocacy, right? You like I may not be on the front line. I may not be that type of advocate. However, I'm bringing awareness, right? And these are and the more we find us the comfortability with those things because you don't have to be a Malcolm X. You don't have to be a Farrakhan, right? But you have to find your groove within that. And what is the purpose of the film? If it's because also too, there's money that you're investing in this film. And so at some point, you want to recoup yourself in some type of way. And and you might not thought about that there, but it will come across like, all right, somebody might want to buy your film. Who knows? But all these things that will come across your desk that you have to think about. And I think that ties to why you're trying to do the film, what's the purpose of the film, and it will determine what how you present it to the world.
So,
Yeah,
oh,
I second that. For me, I think storytelling is advocacy.
mm,
Uh, I think the to have the ability to see a problem and be able to process through that and then talk about it. That is a level of advocacy that I think sometimes we lose a sense of agency around. And I think for me, part of what I was hoping to inspire these young fathers to consider is that they are agent, they have the agency and they have all of the things and the ingredients that they need to be able to talk about the things that they want to see changed in the world. And I think one of the things that kept coming up a lot in this documentary that I heard throughout my time with them for 2 years is that um, people don't believe that we can be good dads, and that was something that I constantly heard. But it really led to people don't believe in me, and so challenging these young fathers to sort of recognize that in order for that to change, they also have to tell their story. And I think for me, when I think about advocacy, I go back to who gets access to the tools. And I think when you have access to the tools, you can better advocate for yourself. And so that for me was what I wanted. I wanted them to have access to the camera, and I wanted them to have access to understanding their writing and have someone teach them. Or we did a session on just writing what your story is, and helping them move it from just their thoughts to pen and paper, and from pen and paper to an actual space. And I think in doing that, action is advocacy. So I think throughout this process, we were doing advocacy work without even realizing that we were doing it.
yes, sir. I kind of got you. You alluded to it a little bit. Actually, both of you guys did, but I'm gonna start with you, Cole. What? How did you sitting on the couch one day and it's like I was a 16-year-old father and this is what I went through and I want to tell this story. Like, how did this idea come up? How did you structure this in your mind, organize this in your mind to go from idea to product?
That's a great question. I think what was happening to me is that I was seeing young fathers being separated from their children and a system unwilling to listen to me as I'm telling them what's happening. I'm telling them that I'm seeing this, and then that's forcing me to take me and my sons to prison because that's really how this all started. It really started because I was teaching in a classroom with 27 young men that were in the detention center. And when I asked them about their fathers, many of them, it just changed the whole environment and atmosphere. And when I asked where their fathers were, many of them said that their fathers were in prison. And so at one point, I just took me and my sons, we went to prison to work with fathers. And when I got to prison and brought my sons to prison and we started working with dads and talking about parenting and fatherhood, I started hearing from them that they didn't have a connection with their sons. And it wasn't that they didn't love their children, that they also were young parents themselves because they had not been connected to resources and parenting skills to be able to be healthy fathers. And so I was like, oh, okay. So then when I went back to detention and sat with these young men and began to unpack what I was learning, they started to tell me that they had become fathers. And so I just said to myself, well, okay, how do I get people to see what I'm seeing? Then I'm gonna have to create a documentary, and I love documentaries. And so I'm like, I didn't know how I was gonna do that, but I invested a little bit of the money that I earned, and I brought in a film crew, and we just talked. We interviewed one of the dads that ultimately became in the film, and I sat with that for a year and a half. We did this. We followed him. It was called The Day in the Life of Makari and his son, and we just spent the day following them, and we recorded that, and that is set there. And then ultimately, I came back to the table, and I'm like, well, no, this can't sit there because it's still happening. I've got to do something. And I think that's literally how it unfolded. And then I started talking louder and asking more questions and going to places where I know people would listen. And then before you know it, someone was like, well, hey, let's talk about how we can make this project happen. But I say that to say to anybody, if you see something and you want something changed, it can happen. I just was consistent about not just sitting on the couch with it any longer, but putting myself out there in a way that will push forward the narrative that I'm seeing and the change I want to see in the world, if that makes sense.
All the sense in the world. Dr. Yusuf also said something similar as far as like just starting to make the motion is half the battle. Dr. Yusuf, I kind of had the same question for you, but you told us a little bit about like you started in the book and you were developing the concepts from the book. So how did it go from book to video?
Be quite honest with you. I didn't write a treatment. I didn't even know that's what you're supposed to do. It was
Really?
just pure hustle. Like when I say hustle, finding the people that could take my vision and turn it into something. And like people are, you're meeting, and the first question they ask you, what kind of budget you working with? And I'm like, man, I'm working on a budget of hope and love. That's my budget. And
Real talk.
and people was very familiar with the story, and the story it's very impactful, but it was easy to tell. And so and to be honest with you, I was very fortunate that some of the folks I work with that they had the quality to take what was already, because I didn't bring anything besides the story, and sometimes that may not work out to your best, and for me it did, and I just continue to push forward and pushing forward, and some of the people, all of them got paid at some point, but again, some people may, because people counting dollars before the dollars get there. And some of them, I'm not mad at that because that's their livelihood. But then here was an opportunity to be a part of a project that was bigger than any money that any of us could receive because of the opportunity that it had. And that was always my niche to people. And so that was part of it, convincing folks like this is a worthy endeavor, and they jumped on.
Sir. Yes, sir. Man, y'all actually are helping me out a lot with what I'm trying to do. So I really appreciate this conversation. Uh, y'all spoke about capturing humanity. Um, what truths are missing from the narratives being told? Um, I guess I'll start with you, Cole. When we're talking about young men and fatherhood and being system adjacent, what is the elephant in the room that hasn't been spoken of that you brought up?
Um, that young dads are not criminals, that they are not um, unloving or don't have the ability to love, that they aren't nurturing, that they don't care. I think all of the stereotypes and biases that are connected to young men who potentially may look older, all of those things are shattered in this documentary. So I think for me it's the continuation of telling truer stories and giving people the tools that have those stories to be able to tell their truth. And so I think for me it was just really centered around that. So me it's just shattering those stereotypes and those biases, and watching the fathers um, see themselves in a way that they had been told that they were, that they actually weren't. And so I think oftentimes what I've learned too is many of the dads that we work with also believe that they were not lovable, that they couldn't do this because there's all these systems that tell them that well you need to have a job, you need to do this, you need to be doing that, and if you're not doing this, then you aren't worthy
Not
or
a
you're
man. You're not a father.
not a father, and all of those things are shattered when they get the opportunity to tell the story that is true to them, and their children become living are are visible as witnesses to we get to witness that love between the child and the parent in a way that I think isn't something that you see when it comes to
Yes.
young fathers in particular and their children.
Yes. So I'd also like to offer that there is a desire in these young men to be fathers and to
Oh
be
yeah.
good fathers, despite what media may say, right? Because the perception is that we not don't desire it as if it's like not a thing. A
And
lot
it's
of
not
systems cause these issues to happen.
yeah, and what we discovered is it wasn't just even the systems. It was people that were close to you. It's my grandmother, it's my aunt, it's my uncle, it's the my village and my community. It's all the people that said, "Oh, you're young, your dad, your life is over." What it's the I'm a teenage father and you shouldn't be a teenage father. Only that is bestowed onto men who are a certain stature that will be
Mhm.
celebrated. And these young men are growing into spaces where when you find out that they're a father and they're 15, there's an instant shame that is circulated throughout out of fear, of course, because no one wants their teenage boy to become a father, right? And yet, what we were suggesting is that, yeah, I'm not. This film is not promoting teenage pregnancy. What this film is highlighting is that they are here, and so we cannot ignore them, and we also can't shame them through that journey either.
Yes, sir. Dr. Yusuf, what truth was missing? What elephant of the room in the room did you uncover with your document?
I think for me, and it wasn't something consciously, more subconsciously, like there's a difference between uh, real and being authentic. And particularly, we're all black men. I come from grew up a certain flavor of being black and black men, and that story is portrayed a certain type of way. Being in prison, coming out the streets, etc. And we tend to think that we have to show the hardcoreness of that to show by keeping it real. Is my film edgy? Absolutely, but it's more rooted in the authenticity tied to the vulnerability, and that truth helps. Like again, like you can use the B word, right? But what is the context of using it? And I was watching my film this morning, and there's a part where I just talk about like when I thought like a nigga, I behaved like a nigga, but when I
Mm.
began to think like a black man, I want to save other black men, and that it struck me because of and using the nigga word in the film, it could be controversial, but like again, it's the context. That next line is making distinction between a nigga and a black man. And that's the authenticity of the vulnerability versus just keeping it real. There, you probably miss the distinction between those two, and that's the educational piece of keeping. Like I kept it true in terms of the language, but the elevation of the language of there's a difference there. If you stay at a nigga behavior, then you lost the purpose of this film, which is to take you from being a nigga to being a black man.
I say. Um, any last thoughts from either of you before I open up the floor to our attending audience for Q&A?
I mean, I'm just saying, if you got a film in you, like so many tools to you nowadays. Just push forward and figure it out, and you have a story that's worth telling.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I would echo that too. I think if you have an idea and a concept, just be consistent with it and don't let it go. And the people that will support it will come. And I think that's what I learned. Be consistent and they will come.
They will come. That being said, man, I want to switch gears a little bit, y'all. I know we've been in this for about an hour now, so I'm going to change us over, but before I get us into the Q&A part, I do want to give us a couple of updates because people tend to leave the Zoom call a little early, and I want to make sure they know what's coming up from MI-CEMI. So Chuck, can you pull up the slide real quick, and I give the quick announcements for upcoming events. So, guys, first and foremost, you could always check the MI-CEMI website. That is the michigancollaborative.org/events for any upcoming events. We post our events as well as partner events inside of that. But for us, August 4th, where we'll be at 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. via Zoom, we will be doing another reentry table. Our discussion will be on reentry housing. September 1st, same time, 12 p.m. to 1:30. We will be doing another prison programming providers table. We have not determined our topic, but from the last conversation that we had plenty of topics that arose, so we will be preparing something special for that one. And then September 17th from 12 to 1:30 p.m., MI-CEMI Communications table. We will be continuing on this discussion of storytelling with short form videos, TikToks, YouTube shorts, social media, etc. And of course, send any events to post that you want us to post on our site to mail@mycemi.org. Now, please highlight the fellas again for us. I put up some closing thoughts, questions for people to be thinking about to see on screen. But at this point, I would like to open up the floor for questions, Q&A. Somebody is off mute. I don't know who that was, but doesn't matter. Right now, the floor is open for anybody who has any questions or comments that they would like to interject right now.
Okay, Marcus Kelly of the Change at Midnight Coalition. One of my questions I have, first of all, I thank you, brothers, for allowing me to get on. But my question is, after you prepared your film, what was did you plan an impact campaign? Like, what did your impact campaign look like?
Can you talk more about that, Marcus? Like, what exactly is the impact campaign for those of us who have not heard that terminology? I think I know what you're getting at, but yeah.
Yeah, like impact campaign meaning, what is the outcome you was trying to reach, and who all did you reach out to that needed to be in the room to start that process of whatever outcome you was trying to reach.
I can start. I'll start with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll start with that. And thank you. That's a great question. I think the term I was like, ooh, impact campaign. I like that.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay. I don't know what that is, and I haven't done that, but we need to start it. What I will say, the first thing that once the film was complete, I think the only people that I was most concerned about seeing the film in its full capacity in 4D and all that stuff and on screen was the dads, their children, and their families. And so I think that was the first level, and then all of the community partners that helped support moving the film to where we got to our first premiere. I think the next level for me is definitely I think for me I'm really trying to see this film as a space that holds weight and from the theme of like harm reduction and this idea that what's happening to young men in systems, we especially systems that move from a punitive approach, that we need to look at this from a harm reduction and a health issue. And so I think that's the next phase of that I'm trying to figure out how to move it in those spaces. But I didn't have any out, and then we just did it a couple of weeks ago. So I think I'm still in the infancy stages of like where this needs to go and who all needs to see it.
Can we And this last but not least, will we have a one-to-one sometime soon about that? I'm working on the impact campaign myself. That's why I was asking. I think that's a beautiful topic, most needed topic that need to be discussed in our communities. So I would like to have a one-to-one.
So I echo what my brother Cole says. That's a great question. I mean, I've never heard that terminology applied to a film in that way, but I can see it. So for me, and I think for any filmmaker, first you want to be how your film is going to be received. Like I produced it, I directed it, whatever. In my mind and my circle, it's the bomb. It's the shit. But then you go take it to the world, and like, so that's the first impact, right? That you trying to live with. And again, like when you in the room and you showing it, you quiet, you in the back, you watching everybody, you try seeing all reactions and like did would that really mean that thumb up? And then afterwards, and you hear people like, man, it moved me, it touched me, and a variety of individuals. Like that's the most impactful right there. And I think within the film, there's an impact campaign without calling that because again, the emotion that's coming out of it. Again, there's multitude of different films, but specific around serious social issues is going to draw you in, or should be. But fundamentally, we already kind of talked about advocacy and things of that nature. The subject matter that's built into it. So the greater question with your film is like, what is your purpose of your film?
Mm.
Are you trying to do film festival route? And that's part of a campaign impact right there. And then there's post the film festival, or are you just going like how rappers used to do, put in your truck and you just gonna hustle that boy, right? Doing your own viewings and things like that. So once you answer those questions, that helps determine to the direct question of what the campaign impact would look like.
Yeah, I appreciated that. Good question, Marcus. I suggest you put your information in the chat so that you can be reached out to as well for that one-on-one you asked about. The floor is open. Any other questions? I have not checked the chat. If there have been any questions in the chat, my apologies. I have kind of been into this conversation and not into the chat as much. So if you had something in the chat that needs to be raised, raise your hand and I'll pull you up.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
All right. First of all, I just want to say thank you for putting this on. This has been really like cool just to see how both Cole and Yusuf are working on these projects. And I really like Cole. I like your landing page for the Father Project. That's really nice. And I also saw the on the Delta project you guys had the Can You See Me? That's a really cool. I know you did that like 7 years ago, but that was really cool. Like as a kind of relational kind of storytelling situation you guys had there. One of the things I work in an organization, we work with like mostly families and people who are struggling with addiction, and we give them direct services. Uh, but advocacy is really important to our work and getting buy-in from our partners because we work with law enforcement, first responders, the medical community, all sorts. And I think I'm just curious, like what have you guys seen as things that like help or work well with working with, families or maybe if individuals and helping them to figure out how to tell their story? Because I think especially, some people might fall into like specific narratives they feel like they have to like speak through. Um, Maybe even it takes time for people to process things before they're even ready to get on camera. Like I'm always even like kind of like I don't like putting a camera on someone right away, and I just think that there's like a lot of value in like, but then some people will also say like you have to get it while it's fresh and like things like that. But I almost don't know if that's the right move when people are still processing things. And Um, I'm just curious what if you guys have found anything that's been successful in your like creative process working with people and various like, parties. Just curious on what that looks like for you guys.
Yeah, I can kick that off. And great question, Brandon. I would say one of the things that really helped me in this work is having a relationship with many of the young fathers. And so for this documentary, these were not dads that I just met off the street or just met over a weekend. Many of them I met when they were 12 and 13. Many of them were referred to me by a probation officer, and they were a part of our young dad parenting group. And for those that were not, I had a relationship with a supportive adult who recommended them. And so I often say to people, the most vulnerable thing you can do is bring a camera into your world and open your world up to a camera. And for the most part, we live in a world where the camera everybody is getting access to your world, but you get to pick and choose what you share. And I think it's a little different because so many people are used to sharing their stories by way of their phones. And so I think for us, it was one, having the relationship and having these connections with these fathers that they trusted that I was not going to exploit them, that we made the environment safe because they picked the environment in which they wanted to be interviewed in. They wrote what they wanted to share with the world. And so for me, it's almost like we didn't come in as abstractors. We came in as partners and allowed them to lead us in what they wanted to share. And what they didn't want to share, we advocated and supported. Not everything has to be shared. You don't have to tell the full story because you have a story to tell. You can tell the story that you want the world to see, and what you don't want the world to see, that belongs to you. And so giving back agency to folks, because sometimes we think when we have to tell a story, we need to tell the whole story. But I think sometimes it's okay to tell people what belongs to you is yours. And if you're not ready to tell that story, don't. And that's okay. And I think just humanizing these approaches around we're all human, and connection and relationship and trust are the ingredients to get to have someone join you in telling their story, no matter what the story is. But if those elements are missing, it will be very difficult to do that.
Mm.
Yeah, I was just doubling down on Cole's point. Actually, I was writing as he said it, building trust. That is essential, particularly when you think about marginalized communities, oppressed communities, people who have been excluded, and where narratives have been created, cameras have functioned as weapons against them, and so how do you create a space where they're feeling protected, and that protection turns into where they can see their agency being able to operate in their better half. And so, and those that requires a level of engagement, helping them take on ownership. And these are all part of the process. So even like if you're doing a program, and then at some point in the program, hey, we think about doing a documentary or whatever, and then oh, for real, why like everything's a learning moment, and every learning moment is an opportunity to go deeper, and if the work that you're already doing should have actually been setting you up for that to get there, even though that may not have been your goal. So you made a shift. Like, okay, I could see that. And but also really communicating to folks what's their role in this process so they can have greater ownership in it.
Yes, sir. Uh,
Thank
Before
you
we
guys.
move forward with the next question, I also want to highlight Monica Ankton dropped the funding opportunities are available. Check out the National Endowment of Humanities.gov, also National Endowment of the Arts. I have not vetted them or checked them myself, but she dropped the information in the chat for us. So I suggest you do your own due diligence on that. Everybody who is looking for some level of assistance in building out these stories. Um, any other questions? Anybody else had any questions,
Yeah,
comments?
yeah, I had a quick question.
Sure, where you at? I cannot find you. I'm looking.
Okay, I'm Ramon Williams. How's it going,
Okay,
gentlemen? How's it going, everybody? Ramon Williams of Film Link. We kind of live
okay,
at the
gotcha.
intersection. of filmmakers and their audience. So we deal with marketing and distribution. So it's you have a passion and a desire to tell your story, craft a story, but who is the audience? Who are the people that you're going after? Also as a filmmaker, especially an independent filmmaker, you're running your own business. So every film that you have becomes its own entity, essentially. You have to find out who is your audience. How are you gonna recoup that money from those investors, things like that. But a big thing about crafting a story, and I don't want to go too deep into the business aspect of it, but I am curious, just because this is a filmmaker call. Uh, I heard you guys mention premieres and also film festivals as different ways to distribute your films. But there's a whole world of distribution and marketing that you have to be involved in as a filmmaker. And I'm just curious from your guys' perspectives, when you actually get done with the work, what is your suggestion, especially as documentary filmmakers, of distributing your content? Not everyone's going to go to Netflix, not everyone's going to go to Tubi, not everyone's going to go to a theatrical release. But what are your guys' suggestion on that? And that's my question.
Man, that's a great loaded question. I wish I had the answer. I'm actually still searching for the answer myself. I think you got an answer in you.
Yeah.
But for me, I think again, like you, is when you got first do the film. Once you do the film, and then some people might have it all figured out. I didn't have it all figured out, and then because like film was it freeway film filmway free whatever where you go through film festivals, and then they used to have the other one like I couldn't figure it out now. They was so mob controlled, and that was very discouraging. And to your point, not everybody has to do the film festival route. I wanted to for my own validation. Thought it was worthy, and to your point, that could be an opportunity to meet distributors and things of that nature. But also, I think the point that you're echoing, and you may not realize, is knowing the business. Because even if you meet somebody there, and you may end up getting a fucked up deal because you're just so happy that you met a distributor, and so being able to control what you have. So I think that's like another topic for this conversation: the film, and then what you're going to do with the film afterwards. And I'm again being very honest. Like I my premiere I'm having tomorrow is my actual first premiere outside of the film festivals, and like I would love to do continue on that route, doing tours with it, and then landing on some type of distribution.
Yeah, with me being fresh out the oven, I've gotten approached a couple of times like, okay, where can we find this at? Where are you sending it? Is it going to be YouTube? Are you thinking um Hulu? What are you thinking? And it's interesting. I'm actually taking the conversation back to the eight young fathers who helped create the film, and I think we're going to sit with each other and begin to explore where this can be considered as a tool to educate and help. And so I think for us, from the lens that I'm thinking of, is that really what my vision for this film is to get these young fathers to be able to travel with it and to find funding to help me help them travel with the film. One, because the North Star for our Delta Project nonprofit is how do I become something I don't see? And so I really want to help them tell their stories across any spectrum that can be, but also I want to use this as an educational tool and get this into universities or get this into the Department of Health and Human Services, to get this into community mental health, juvenile justice, criminal justice, wherever there is an opportunity where we can heal and we can create opportunities for these young fathers to continue their stories. That's kind of we're starting with. But I'll be transparent and honest. I have no idea where to even go. I was like, I just did a film. Okay, we premiered it. Okay, now what do I do? And I don't think I had yeah, I didn't have a plan for what to do next. The plan was just to get the film done, and now it's done. And yeah, someone just mentioned, yeah, in foster care. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Um, because of some of the topics in the film is asking, these young fathers are asking questions. What are my fears? And the fears are connected to systems.
Yeah, I appreciated that question, Ramon. Because I'm interested as well, but you also led at least Yusuf, you led him into it, to a trap I was setting for him, and that was for us to have a part 2 of this so that we could continue that conversation about the next steps after we produce the film, right? So I appreciate that conversation and look forward to me announcing from MI-CEMI that we're doing this again, and we're gonna talk about those next steps to it. But in the spirit of that, Mark Hartman had a couple of comments that he wanted to toss into the ring. So,
Yeah,
Mark, the floor is yours, bro.
yeah,
I'm
thank you.
all ears.
Thank you very much, Michael. I just wanted to take the opportunity to commend both of you, Cole and Dr. Yusuf, for your work. I haven't had an opportunity to view Redemption Road or the Fatherhood Project, but I've been listening intently throughout the call, and I just want to encourage you both to take your documentaries as far as you can take them. Our organization, Humanity for Prisoners, pivoted about 3 years ago from a speaker series for our annual fall fundraiser to a film series. And we showed behind our walls the story of the uh, Calvin Prison Initiative uh, college and prison program at Richard Handling Correctional Facility in Ionia, Michigan. And I think we screened that film around the state of Michigan more than any other organization, including the filmmaker. Um, we did that with his permission, of course, and we attended several film festivals. And as a follow-up to that, we did a documentary film, sponsored a documentary film about the origin story of our organization, which advocates for the incarcerated throughout Michigan. And it too has been screened around the state. So I wanted to just encourage you, commend you for your work, both of you, but also just ask if you have given thought to leveraging some of your connections with partner nonprofits, MI-CEMI partners, to take the film across the state of Michigan and into some of the college and prison programs. There might be a couple of people here on the call who can speak to that possibility. If there's anything we as in Humanity for Prisoners and the MI-CEMI team can do to help you, to help promote your films, um, we're happy to do that. I think they're powerful testimonies. I read as much as I could on each of them, and I think it's great work that you're doing. So thank you.
Mark, I'll say thank you. And yeah, I think I could use as much direction and support around ways in which I can move this across the state of Michigan, as well as bring young dads along to help narrate and do Q&A. Um, yeah, so any suggestions and support, I'm excited and open to.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
I'll echo that. I think I work at a nonprofit, executive director of nonprofit. Particularly with this conversation, the subject matter, there's opportunity to create like a united front, and the films could be a tool how to do those things. At nonprofits, the first question, where's the funding coming from? So, but that's another. Putting just naming that, where does that come from? If we send it properly, of going across the state, kind of going back to Marcus' question now. the impact campaign, right? This could be the impact campaign with the
Mhm.
film, some outcomes, some co-creations of some outcomes, right? Of challenging and things. So I think where you're on to something, Mark, I'll be down. I think also like let's name it like all of us. The nonprofits don't all work together.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're forced to work together because the funders say, "Who are you collaborating with?" But here's an opportunity for us to collaborate in a very authentic way around a subject matter that we all could benefit and have some shared outcomes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I see one more hand. I got time for this one more question, and then I have a last question for the two of you guys, and then we are out of here. Samsung, I'm sorry, I don't have a name on the screen, so
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Nice to meet everybody in the chat. I'm Dylan. I advocate with Fostering Futures, Park West Foundation, FY Tech. I was just wondering, I know a lot goes into filmmaking and whatnot, especially in a movie. I was wondering, I know you guys are advocating for young fathers and whatnot. How would they be able to tie into for juvenile justice? Like, I would love to show this to my brothers. I've been in foster care all my life and got so many people who would be able to relate to this. So I'm wondering, would you guys be even interested in doing something so similar to evolving juvenile justice centers? I've been in some that have been shut down for misconduct, a bunch of stuff, and I feel like like somebody
you're breaking up a little bit,
Sharice.
Dylan. Slow down.
I can
Hey,
I can I can speak to that. So, and I think we also should connect with you. I sit currently on the Juvenile Justice Advisory Council for the state of Michigan. And it's an advisory council that really uplifts lived experience young people that have had experience navigating the juvenile justice system. And it supports parents that have had that. And it is a paid opportunity. And what you are a part of is really looking at the policies and the legislation that has currently been passed around juvenile justice reform, and having access to visit juvenile detention facilities, to speak to youth that are involved in those spaces. So one, I'd love to connect you with that. And two, yes, one of my biggest goals, of course, is to get this into the front of the young people that are actually living it. And so if there are opportunities that detention facilities would be open to sharing this film with young people that are in those spaces, we are open to that.
My
I look.
word. I was gonna say real quick, yeah, I'll be down the show. I left my number in the chat, so feel free to reach out to me.
Mr. Shakur.
Sir. That being said, man, I gave y'all the upcoming events. Just save the date, August 4th. We will be doing this again, talking about short form content, before we get into another conversation about after you film. But before we end today's conversation, I want to center us on one last question for the both of y'all. And that question is, what is one thing you hope people take away from this conversation about storytelling, advocacy, and narrative change? What's one thing that you hope people take away from this?
Yeah, one thing, right?
Just one.
Just one thing. I'm gonna say the through line.
Mm. I want multiple things, but I'm stuck to one.
Exactly. I try to respect the rules. I'm a rule breaker, so
I think the thing that has kept me in this work is, I'll just use one word, and that is imagination.
Mm.
So yeah, and I could speak to that, but that's a whole nother thing. So I would say imagination. Continue to imagine.
Continue to imagine. I thank you, gentlemen, again for the conversation, for giving us so much game and helping enlighten us in so many different areas of why these stories matter and how you got to the points that you have gotten to. And I wish you much success moving forward. And Yusuf, I'm going to be thinking now how we could lock something in and pull a viewing together here in Lansing again. I know you did one before, but it wasn't with Mike X, so that's a different thing here in Lansing.
I got you.
But yeah,
let's do
yes,
it.
sir. I appreciate that. And I
Man,
appreciate all of you for attending. Yeah, final thoughts. Go ahead.
I was going to say thank you for having us. Again, Cole, man, I've been following you, from afar. Definitely speak to you. I'm an admirer, respect, and appreciate your work, man. So thank you for Mike putting us in a room. There's a mutual respect there between us already, but it was great to see my brother and hear what he's working on in real time.
Yeah, and I echo that too. And I say to Mike and Chuck, one of the things that I think is brilliant that you guys have the ability to do is that you are bridgers, and you bridge people together. And I think that is necessary in the time that we live in and the work that we are all doing. And so thank you for continuing to create these kind of spaces where we could all collectively come together and learn and share. And Yusuf, thank you. I've been following you, and when I heard that you were going to be on, I was like, oh my God, I had my fan. My fan came out, and I was like, oh my God.
Yes, sir.
So I got it. I was extremely excited and thrilled to just be in the room with you. So I respect your work, and I'm honored to be even connected. So this has just been a blessing, and yeah, thank you guys for holding the space, and I hope that we can continue to have these kind of conversations.
Thank you all.